Hello everyone and welcome to Clay Formations. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to be forming some clay into Bruiser the Guppy. Alright, first we start out with Epoxy Sculpt around a steel ball. That'll give me something to attach the clay to, a real rigid surface after it dries. It doesn't need to be perfect, just real rough, just enough for the clay to adhere to. After I attached the back tail, I realized that the fins are a little bit too big, so I made them a little smaller. And I'm going to make his dorsal fin look real big. Now using thin sheets of polymer clay, cover the whole surface up with the base layer. The thing is, right now it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to really have any details to it, it's just bulking it out. You don't want to add too much detail in the beginning. The only thing you have to remember is to make sure that the surface is all even. You don't want too many thick spots, too many thin spots. You want it to be kind of pretty much universal and even. Okay, now I'm going to put his eyes on there. That way I can see where to put the eyebrows and the mouth. This guy's going to have a little bit of an attitude, as you'll see as we continue on. Building up the brow part. Now we're going to give him a big bottom lip. Real tough guy. Here I'm blocking out the gill area where his gills will be. Sometimes it's hard to know just how thick something should be, how big something should be, especially when you're working on something like a face, because it has to have some type of symmetry to it, if that's the intent. Sometimes you can do things asymmetrical because it's cartoonish, but if you're making a certain, type of personality, or even in a cartoon face, you have to have a little bit of symmetry. Sometimes that's difficult to do. We get a center line there. Yeah, that's it. He needs more attitude. As I've, continued to do sculptures, I find that my style has a lot of sketch lines to them. And it's not so much detail, it's more of a sort of a marking point to create a flow. So everything runs in the same direction. It's not totally necessary, but for some reason that's the style I tend to adhere to. Maybe that's why I like the rake tool so much. Looks like it needed a little more clay right there, and even more. And this little guy's so small I really couldn't use my fingers very much to smooth it out, so I had to use the all stylus tools. Looks pretty good. If you guys notice, I keep going back and forth too a lot. I'll go back and forth as I check to see both sides are looking symmetrical. Add some texture to his bottom lip. I think the reason why I do it this way is because when you work on a sculpture, it has to be consistent. You can't, in other words, once you begin a specific style, you have to continue with that style. You can't have one part looking one way and another part of the sculpture looking another way. Otherwise, the composition is off and it doesn't really work. It looks kind of awkward and unbalanced. It's funny, I'm noticing the bottom of his chin looks like a walnut. That wasn't intentional, by the way. It just seemed to happen. Okay, adding some more texture. A little bit more of his face is coming out. I wanted to make his gills look kind of spiky and feathery, you know. And sometimes you have to use two ball stylus tools in order to make that work. Okay, creating a center line underneath. Good Lord, it still looks like a walnut. What was I thinking? Of course, maybe he swallowed a walnut. You know, with his attitude and everything, he may have just swallowed a big old walnut, and that's the reason why he's so grumpy. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm thinning out some, you know, the spines that are on a fish's fins and dorsals. I remember going fishing when I was a kid, and I was always afraid of the spikes that were on the tips of the fins and the flippers. I wanted to make his fins really thin, but I haven't really figured out how to do that yet. I think maybe what I would have to use is some kind of plastic or acrylic sheets in order to get it to work, but the problem is when you put it in the oven that could possibly melt, so I'll have to figure something out on how to do that, because I would like to do more fish. I have fun making aquatic animals. So So right here I'm trying to make it as thin as I can. I think I change where they connect to the body. They just didn't look right to me. After a while, I think I go back and change it. Now I'm adding some clay to his dorsal fin, blending it in with the rest of the body. It was a little thin there at the edge, so I had to add a little more. Making a little ridge where it goes into the top of the spinal cord. I have to hold my other hand to make sure I don't move it too much. Now I'm going to add texture to the whole rest of his chubby little body. It goes really fast this way, but I have to say when you're doing it, it takes a long time. But the results are worth it. The watercolor brush takes down the harsh edges. All right, now we do the tail. I wish I could have made those fins just a little bit thinner now. But oh well, we learn as we go. By the way, if you've made it this far, if you like what you see and you'd like to see more, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button for a like and subscribe. I have a lot of nice things coming up in the future. I'll add some teeth, just to give it that little extra attitude, like you really don't want to mess with this guy. Always make sure if you're adding teeth or fingernails to always put a base hole in it first, because if you don't, it will displace too much of the clay and usually it ends up distorting what you've already sculpted. Looks pretty good. Now we just push the clay up into the teeth to secure them in there. All right, let's bake this little guy. Yes, I did let it cool down. The metal isn't hot. All right, let's take it off of that and put it on here and get it ready to paint. Nice and solid. Paint collection. Alright, we'll start off with a cream base. Give it kind of a neutral color. If you ever look at a fish, their designs are absolutely amazing. Each one is a work of art. There's so many colors and variations. It really looks neat. So here's a color shift blue, and mixed with the base color of the cream color, it kind of gives it sort of a greenish tint. And the color shift paints are really vibrant. A little bit of purple color shift. Folk art brand, by the way, if you want to know what types they are. All right, Now what I'm doing here is I'm doing a little bit of a black wash to bring out some of the textures and really darken some of the recessed areas. And then adding some really vibrant dark purple. Really makes it pop. Adding a little more cream color to the gills and a little bit of dry brush. Now for the eyes. Figured I'd give him kind of a red eye to really make him look intimidating. Sorry, it's a little out of focus there. Well, at least my fingers are in focus. Now to give him a little tiny yellow dot. That one actually worked. Usually when I do the dot, I usually end up messing up the second eye. I don't know why. It always happens that way. Now we'll give him a little black, tiny little black dot. Okay. Looks like he's ready. He's not finished yet. Now we got to give him something to swim in. So we're going to make a base for him, mixing up some Epoxy Sculpt. Not Epoxy Sculpt, Epoxy. Okay, put them in the hole that I made for the base, and then I realized that I drilled the hole all the way through, so it really didn't stand straight, so I have to use my little clamp there to hold it up. After it dries, I realized that all the epoxy seeped into the bottom and made him wobble. That's not going to work. There's the culprit. I know what to do. Went out to the garage and ground it down, so now it's nice and flat. All right. Now we're ready. Have it straight. Swimming the right way. Okay, now we take some tin foil and we bulk up the edges of the base. This is where I have to be careful because I don't want to hit the spines either. Sticks there will be for coral towers. Right, now I mixed up some Epoxy Sculpt and I started putting it all over the place. I had a lot of fun doing this because it was so random and so full of texture that it really didn't matter. No matter where I put the clay, it was going to be all right because it was just going to look like a rock. I really like Epoxy Sculpt because it's so durable, but it takes so long for it to cure. This works really well too, by the way. You wad up a piece of tin foil and you just roll it over and push it into the clay. It really makes a convincing rock formation. So this batch here will probably take about, well, really it takes about 24 hours for the Epoxy Sculpt to fully cure. So you get to a certain point and you just have to stop and let it cure. Most inexpensive tool you can own. Piece of tin foil. Building up the coral towers. Oh, and by the way, once you start using your paint brushes on epoxy sculpt like this, you can't use them for anything else. The good part about it, though, is the more you use it, the more texturized the paintbrush becomes. So it's almost a kind of a win-win. Although you can't use it for paint anymore, the more you use it, the better it gets. That's tall enough for a coral tower. Texturizing it with the brush. I really like the way the rock and coral turned out. Okay, now to put the base coat of brown. Always start out with your dark colors first, and then you bring out the lighter colors as you texturize it in dry brush. Here's the second lighter color, light brown. Dry brushing it on, bringing out the details, bringing out the texture. And then the final coat will be an even lighter color. And there you just want to do the highlights, just enough to bring out there it is right there. Just enough to bring out those highlights on the top. In turn gives the rock more depth. By the way, be careful not to hit your original subject of the sculpture, which is the fish. Mr. Bruiser, I'm sure he wouldn't like any of that paint getting all over him. He might bite you. Okay, looks like we got that pretty much done, but as I was doing it, it still lacked something. It still needed a little more. I wasn't sure. So I went and got some shells. By the way, Shell Shop, Morro Bay, California. You can get all the shells you want, from microscopic to huge. And Just grabbed some interesting ones and put them all over the place. This will give it a little more character. Still need something more. So let's put some seaweed in there. Some dried up seaweed. We'll put that one there. And one there. Get back over there. Stand up straight. Now we'll put a couple of more right there. Glue doesn't want to stick. Okay, one more. Why not? Okay, I think that about does it. No, we need one more. We need one more shell to cover up that spot right there. Sometimes you just need one more shell. All right, let's call this big guy done. The ruler of the pond. Nobody gets in his way. I wouldn't get in his way. He looks mean. I think the base turned out pretty good. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.